and he just knifed some people. So the crazy part is, this is one of Al-Qaeda's hand-selected senior commanders for the attack, and he couldn't even keep his cool outside of some bar in Germany, right? Good for us. Al-Qaeda's probably freaking out. The U.S. government, I don't think he's even gone to question him yet, and this is the only person they have behind bars right now who has active knowledge of not just the homeland plot, but potentially the plot against President Trump as well.
All right, Germany captures terrorist with knowledge of Al-Qaeda's U.S. homeland plot. Looks like you posted this on X. I might actually use some of your words. I'm going to ask you for, is it Faraj al-Hamasi?
Yep, correct.
Look at my mastery of the English language. That was a total guess, by the way. All right. Libyan national Faraj al-Hamasi was recently detained in Germany following a mass stabbing in, Bielefeld? Bielefeld? How do you say that one?
I don't know. I've never been to that city. It's the first time I've ever heard of it.
All right. So we're going to call that Bielefeld. And there's a chance I'm wrong, but we're going to just go ahead and move on. What hasn't been publicly acknowledged is that Faraj was actually designated to be one of the attackers in Al-Qaeda's next U.S. homeland plot. I'll be honest with you, I didn't even hear about this. Like, as I was looking at the show notes, so I'm fascinated with your take on this. He was slated to travel from Germany to the United States to participate directly in what insiders are already calling the next 9/11. So what caused him to attack? Now, was it drugs and patience, or did the U.S. visa get denied? Attempts by the German government to portray Faraj as an ISIS operative or misidentify him as Mahmoud from Syria are deliberate disinformation, not from the German government, but from Al-Qaeda. As we warned, ISIS is being used as a cover. Faraj is a longtime member of Ansar al-Sharia, Libya, and directly connected to key figures in our 2012 Benghazi attacks, including the top two targets of the investigation: Abdul Azim Ali, Musa bin Ali, holy cow, that's a lot, and Zaid Balam. Okay.
Yes.
The question, what is it going to take for people to start taking this seriously? I was doing a Change Agents episode earlier today, talking with a guy who's looked at jihadist groups, and we talked about kind of Afghanistan before and what happened during the 20 years of the GWAT and what happened after. And it's just this, training camps, equipment, like all of these things. And I actually referenced you in that, and other intelligence people either directly involved or tangentially involved. It's like I don't know how many more red flags have to be waved, and I'm not in tune or connected enough to even know what the government is actually doing. But what is it going to take for the government to finally take this seriously?
Yeah, I mean, the government's doing pretty much nothing in Afghanistan. They're not collecting on Al-Qaeda. They're definitely not collecting on these camps. Faraj, for example, was Ansar al-Sharia, like you said. That's the group that attacked us in Benghazi. He traveled to Afghanistan. He got put into this plot. He actually went to Turkey. He was going to come to the United States from Turkey. And then what happened is Ziad, who you brought up in summer 2023, got arrested at the airport. They were co-located in Turkey at the time. Faraj freaked out thinking, oh no, law enforcement is on to us. They weren't, for the homeland plot. He goes to Germany, hides out in Germany, but he went to Germany on a fake Syrian passport. Our governments are letting all these people into the countries unvetted, so Germany puts them in the system with a fake name, with a fake Syrian passport, fake identity. They gave him paperwork under this, right? The crazy part is he's outside of some bar and someone upsets him, and he just knifes some people. So the crazy part is, this is one of Al-Qaeda's hand-selected senior commanders for the attack, and he couldn't even keep his cool outside of some bar in Germany, right? Good for us. Al-Qaeda's probably freaking out. The U.S. government, I don't think he's even gone to question him yet, and this is the only person they have behind bars right now who has active knowledge of not just the homeland plot, but potentially the plot against President Trump as well.
What an operational, not to give anybody an advice, but what an operational failure for that guy to lose his cool. I don't know anything about the situation.
Right.
But if you're such a key player, like, hey man, your job is to fly under the radar, not knife people in Germany.
Yeah, one of the issues is a lot of these terrorists in training camp have taken different drugs, and we saw during the Hamas attacks they were on a lot of drugs. So we are in a different situation where some of them could be addicted to different substances, which is helpful to us, right? But it does change their behavior and they lose their cool and what they were assessed to be good at, being patient, being under the radar, working as a team, that might go out the window if you're become addicted to a substance.
How is it possible that the intelligence community in the United States was not instantly on their way over there, let alone the geographical assets that are already, like, how is that even possible?
Well, I'm not sure they were tracking on him. We told them about Faraj in February, and really the talk we got back is this person's not a terrorist. We don't have any derogatory information on him, and that's all we got back from the government. Obviously, he goes and commits a terrorist attack in Germany a couple months later, so he was a terrorist. Oddly, Germany even started calling him ISIS, so the U.S. government really dropped the ball and doesn't have any info on him to begin with. So he would have got to the United States as a clean operative because the U.S. did not have derogatory information on him. And we got to remember, a lot of these guys came to this country and you can't background check them.
Yeah, but they have derogatory information on him now. Don't you think that would pique interest?
You think it would?
Like, yeah, like the dossier, you open it and it's like a fly buzzes out. I'm like, okay, we didn't have it before, but now we have all this other information. That to me, God, I wish that Jason Bourne was real. I wish that the Central Intelligence Agency, it was all like holographic screens and the smartest, most capable people. And I'm sure there's super smart, capable people there. But damn it. I mean, again, I was describing it earlier today that the volume knob on the threat warning, like what started off as a low static, it's just increasing. And I'm not tied in enough to understand, other than from the people I hear and that I trust, the volume keeps going up and up and up and up. And the idea of a homeland attack is something that is being resonated across many of those individuals. I don't understand. I mean, what has to happen? What would you do if you were in the Oval Office and you're like, hey, Trump, by the way, they're trying to kill you personally, but this is what you should probably do?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing is they have to be honest that Al-Qaeda is bigger than it's ever been. It's capable. It's doing this plot because the interesting thing is in the U.S. government, the narrative is that the main threat to the United States is only ISIS. And they'll only focus on ISIS. The funding is only going to focus on ISIS. And there's not even money going to look at Al-Qaeda, right? So we have to start collection again on Al-Qaeda and be honest about it. And then we have to talk about how the U.S. government is collecting information from terrorists, be it in Afghanistan and Syria, and putting into classified channels as fact and not being honest where it's coming from, right? Because terrorists are who's influenced our collection. That's who we're trusting to provide accurate information on Al-Qaeda, if you can believe it. So we have really big problems. The last thing would be I would start bombing camps in Afghanistan tomorrow. I will give them geocords of the camps for free. Just start doing it. Because as you know, once you start hitting these people, things get delayed. So when Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri got hit, they pushed the October 7th attacks one whole year. I don't know if you saw, but in March, they hit the head of the military commission for ISIS's Iraq branch. He was the mastermind of the New Orleans attack in January, so it might have even stopped some other ISIS plots in the United States, right? Doing those strikes has effects.
Do you think that the New Orleans attack was an isolated dry run for something else?
No, I do believe it was an attack. I believe he failed in making his bombs. And the interesting part is, so for Al-Qaeda's homeland plot, they had two big failures, right, in the past. One is they made crappy bombs, right? The shoe bomber had moisture, the underwear bomber peed himself. And then two, people had loose lips, right? They got into customs, they freaked out and said, I went to terrorist camp with these 10 guys. So like, we need to fix these two pieces. So how they fixed the bomb piece, they said, you all have to come and take bomb making training. Well, when they brought the terrorists in to make bomb making training, they're like, okay, we can train you as good as we want. We can bring in the greatest Al-Qaeda trainers there are. You suck still at making bombs. So what they did, So what they did for the suicide bombs for the homeland attack, they made them in laboratories. They are made by scientists. They're not made by some Joe Schmo in his kitchen. And I think that's a big thing that people haven't wrapped their minds around yet. So New Orleans, he made his own bombs and he failed at it.
Again, I was talking today because at a geopolitical level or at the Oval Office, okay, like there's a dozen people and they're making decisions. Guess what? You and I aren't a member of that anymore.
Right.
And it comes down to like, what is your average person supposed to do when they hear that this volume knob is being increased? And I hate to be, I'm never an alarmist. I try to objectively work through stuff. I'm like, listen, the odds are in your favor. Stats are in your favor. None of those things matter, though. If you find yourself in one of these events, the stats go completely out the window. And other than for people to maybe start with acknowledging that is an axis out there for whatever you believe that would love for you to no longer exist, and a small fraction of that axis belief will actually do something about it. You can analyze, I guess, and assess your own behavior and try to mitigate risk and change your own behavior. But what advice would you give to somebody who they are hearing these warnings and they look at a government and they're worried whether or not they're paying attention? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I say control what you can control, right? It's almost like you're preparing for any emergency, like a hurricane. We're in Florida, so we're pretty resilient on those things. And so the easiest thing sometimes is like, how can I help someone, right? How can I help my child if something happens? And it's really just taking some sort of like stop the bleed, right? When there was the big terrorist attack in Las Vegas, the majority of people who survived it because so many concert goers had medical training because there's a lot of veterans there. It saved a lot of lives, right? And so just something simple like that, you can focus on it. It's something you can control, and it's something that you can then provide an impact if needed.
Yeah, it's good advice. I mean, otherwise you end up spinning out into this existential fear, and I don't want people to not live their life. I don't want them to feel locked up. And because, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what the other ideology wants. They want to destroy your way of life and prevent you from living those things. And I also don't want people to be ignorant. I agree with you. Control what you can control. Some people hear that and be like, that's not enough. I'm like, I'm doing the best I can, people. Trying to help you.
I got another good recommendation. So I don't know if you've seen the book yet that Scott Mann put together in Task Force Pineapple, The Gathering Storm. So the interesting thing about this book is it talks about the homeland threat that's coming up. But then throughout the book, it asks questions that you can talk through with your family, with your local community. Have we thought about this? Did we do this to prepare? And then it does really interesting like lessons learned from prior attacks that you could have at the back of your head and be like, oh, maybe we should plan for X because this is what happened at a previous attack. So that's something people could get at tfpineapple.org. But yeah, it's just asking those questions. It's playing the what if game. Parents play the what if game all the time with their kids, right? It's now just, okay, if we're in the mall, what if, a couple of people get shot? Now what's the plan, right? You can do those type of things and just now it's been in your head. You've practiced it a couple of times. It's easier to respond when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, the other option is to bury your head in the sand, and I just don't think that. I don't know if that's the world we ever lived in, but it's definitely not the world that we live in now. I think we're past that point. Yeah,
and like you said, 99.9% of people, even if attack occurs, it's not going to affect them physically. The problem is, though, we're going to have a very big mental health problem, right? Because for 20 years, we sent men and women overseas to fight, to keep these terrorists at bay overseas. And then now they're going to be here in their hometowns and their neighborhoods, and people are going to die. And they're going to be like, what did I sacrifice for? And that's going to be a big burden on the country as well.
Yeah, I saw that a little bit even just with the withdrawal in Afghanistan. A lot of veterans questioning their service. And quite frankly, a lot of them reached out to me too. And my response was, listen, you did the best you could with what you had. The way that this ended has nothing to do with the nature of your service and what you were trying to do. And I mean, I hope it helps. But again, I understand that kind of like bottomless pit feeling in your stomach as well,
Yeah. And there were a lot of suicides after that withdrawal of American soldiers. So it's a very frustrating thing that I don't think a lot of people have been honest about.
I'm Katarina Schultz. I'm a relentless investigative journalist who spent the last few years embedded in the heart of chaos of the world's most dangerous drug war. 3 years of dead body. You might have heard my reporting on borderland narcosis. Now, I'm taking you to the front lines. I've built trust on both sides, with traffickers, law enforcement, and the very people trapped in between. I'm taking you into the heart of Mexico's cartel war with fast, raw updates from the heart of the borderlands. Subscribe now to Borderland Dispatches with me, Katarina Schultz. And don't miss my regular appearances on Borderland Narcosis with Vince Rocco Vargas on YouTube at This Is Ironclad or wherever you get your podcasts.